So we are saying the fall of the liberal government in Italy was inevitable by 1922. So we needed to reason issues concerning about the collapse of the liberal government. So we are saying before 1922, Italy was a liberal or democratic government under Victor Emmanuel III, the son of Victor Emmanuel II. So we are saying by 1922, the liberal government was put down by the fascist political party under Mussolini. So we are saying today that the liberal government was overthrown by the political party of Benito Mussolini. So in this kind of arrangement, we needed to understand the rise of Benito Mussolini. But our points must be connected to the question, the fall of the liberal government. In other words, we need to understand the key aspects that led to the fall of the liberal government. This time changes. We must understand the key reasons that led to the fall of the liberal government. Number one, the negative effects of World War I. We are saying today, World War I led to the failure of the Italians. For example, in World War I, Britain approached Italy. Britain approached what? And he convinced Italy that you move from the side of Triple Alliance and join the Triple Entente. On condition, we are going to give you rewards in form of territories. But what happened in this kind of arrangement? World War I led to the death of so many what? Italians. As a result of the what? The war. They blamed Victor Emmanuel III for the death of all of these what? People. By this time, Mussolini and others capitalized on this to challenge the liberal what? Government. And by this time, it is this that led to the fall of the liberal government and the rise of Benito Mussolini, a man of all seasons. Another one, the influence of the Socialist Party. Let me tell you, by this time, socialism was rising up in Europe at a very high speed. In a socialist government, it's part of communism. There was a belief that all of properties had to belong to the government, and the government had to look after the what? The people. So by this time, because socialism was rising up in Europe, the rich middle class who had the money feared to lose their property. Due to what? To socialism. So by this time, they supported Mussolini because for him, he convinced them that he was against socialism. That's why people rose up against the liberal government of Victor Emmanuel III, and they supported the Mussolini. Another one, the inherent weakness of Victor Emmanuel III by 1922. Let me tell you, Victor Emmanuel III failed to solve the hard questions of the day, like unemployment, poverty. These were the problems affecting the Italians. So the man failed to solve the what? The problems. Because he failed, Mussolini came up as a man with full of solutions. By this time, that's why they supported Mussolini against Victor Emmanuel III, claiming that Emmanuel failed to solve their what? Problems. Another one, the rise of Benito Mussolini. He had a great personality and he was an orator. By the way, Mussolini was a magnetic speaker. His speeches could attract people as a magnet can attract laser brain. I can tell you he managed to convince people By this time, he had what you call sugaristic speeches. By this time, he managed to convince the Italians that he was the only man to solve their problems. And this led to the collapse of the liberal government and the rise of Mussolini. Another one, the role of the Black Shirt, the fascist militia. Black Shirt, this was a group of stubborn men created by Mussolini to kill and imprison all of those who refused to accept fascism. By this time, the militia could kill and imprison all of those who were not accepting fascism. People feared, and that's why they had to support Mussolini against Victor what? Emmanuel. For fear of a man called Benito Mussolini. Let me tell you, the Black Shirts was a militia which was created by Mussolini to threaten opponents. You were meant to support only one man, and that man was Benito Mussolini. Another one, the weakness. Let me first explain this point. The weakness of the Italian government. The weakness of the Italian what? Let me tell you, the Italian government was full of weakness. It failed to handle the hard questions of the day: corruption, unemployment. So Mussolini capitalized on this to decampaign the government of Victor Emmanuel the third, and this led to the fall of the liberal government and the rise of Mussolini, very famous politician. Another one, the weakness of Orlando. Orlando was one of the great ministers of the time, altogether. So by this time, Orlando was very weak, was very what? Weak. As Orlando failed to handle the great questions of the time, like unemployment, poverty, because Victor Emmanuel was a king and Orlando was the prime minister, altogether. As he failed to handle the problems of the time, it is this that led to the collapse of the liberal art and the rise of Mussolini. Then the post-World War I socio-economic problems. We are saying the post-World War I socio-economic problems, like unemployment, poverty, this came as a result of World War I because productive people died altogether. Industries collapsed. So by this time, the problems were so many. Here comes a man called Mussolini. He convinced the people that he was the only man who was going to solve their what? Their problems. Very famous man. Another one, the disappointments by the 1919 Versailles settlement. The diplomats, after World War I, sat at Versailles. They had to punish all of those that caused the World War I. But Italy expected great territories from the Versailles what? Settlement. But when they sat, our friend Orlando sat in front, waiting for his what? Territory. But the diplomats gave Italy poor territories in form of countries like Somalia and Eritrea. By this time, we are like saying the Italians were not happy. That's why Mussolini convinced the people that if you support me today, I'll rise up against the Versailles Peace what? Treaty. And this led to the fall of the liberal government, because the liberal government accepted the terms of the Versailles Treaty. I can tell you they could not support such a government. Another one, the formation of the parliamentary code by Mussolini. Mussolini formed the parliamentary code. This was a code in parliament that was supporting fascism. Let me tell you, in parliament, the fascists had so many supporters These supporters used the parliament to campaign for Benito. That's why he was chosen. I can tell you a stubborn man took political power. Extreme nationalism. The Italians had what you call extreme nationalism. They loved their country so much. Because they loved their country so much, by this time, they supported the rise of Mussolini. Because Mussolini proved to be a nationalist, a person who had Italy at what? At heart. Then the influence of the Roman Catholic Church. The Roman Catholic Church supported Mussolini. When it supported Mussolini, Mussolini convinced it to solve the problems of the Roman Catholic Church. By this time, they supported him. Since Italy had so many Roman Catholics, by this time, this led to the collapse of the liberal government. Another one, the insecurity in Italy, characterized by strikes and riots. After World War I, people were striking, rioting, because the government was not solving their what? Problems. So by this, people were desperate, and they were willing to support any new leader who could rise up. That's why they supported Mussolini, and this led to the fall of the liberal government. Then corruption and the embezzlement of public funds. It is said the government officials were corrupt, and they used to embezzle government what? Funds. It is this that led to the collapse of the liberal government, or the fall of the liberal government. Because by this time, they wanted a government which was not corrupt. Then, the failure of the liberal parliamentary system in Italy. The government in power had a few members of parliament, but the fascists got so many members of what? It is this that led to the fall of the liberal government and the rise of Mussolini, because he had so many supporters. Then Hegel's philosophy. Hegel's what? Hegel was a famous intellectual. He wrote ideas concerning about to change. His ideas were read by so many people, and this led to the fall of the liberal government, because Hegel decampaigned the liberal government, and this led to the rise of Mussolini. Very famous politician took political power, and this was Benito Mussolini.